Hey everybody, this is Thor. You are now breathing manually. Let's see what happened in the news today. ChristianToday.com writes, without God and immortality, the case for an objective transcendent moral order is awfully hard to make, and therefore the case for moral obligation is difficult to sustain as well. If life is simply about survival and the replication of genes, then things like morality in general and truth-telling in particular seem quite out of place. As an example, atheist Richard Dawkins has been fairly candid about life without God, as he wrote in his 1995 volume, River Out of Eden, A Darwinian View of Life. The prospect that online media that perpetuates this sort of flawed knowledge can sustain itself with the viewership and ad-based support that allows them to continue just absolutely baffles me. Everyone in the world who is not retarded knows where morality came from. The idea of basic morality, that is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is simple. We have the ability as human beings to project ourselves into the shoes of someone else. We can say, I understand that I would not like to be punched in the face, and therefore I will not punch that person in the face. However, evolutionarily, this could easily come from the idea that we used to live in tribes and groups, and even if we used to live as we live today, it's fairly simple to assume that if I start punching people in the face for no good reason, or even for good reason, it's pretty unlikely that I'm not going to be hit back at some point or even killed. Now, this is where that came from, the whole do unto others as you would have them do unto you thing. And the idea also that doing good for other people in your tribe or social group would allow them to, or cause them to want to reciprocate, so that you would continue to do good things for them, it's the same on both sides, is probably the basis of the entire idea of karma and some universal constant for morality. So this isn't a difficult thing to understand where it came from. But people who choose to instead ignore their rational minds, not think about it at all, and come to the first conclusion that they can possibly reach that has something to do with God as the basis for morality, they choose to accept that rather than, thinking about it for a minute. And that's goddamn depressing. The story goes on to say that, referring to a world where we are shaped by our DNA and evolutionary imperatives, presumably in such a world, truth means very little as well. After all, if humans are nothing but a bunch of selfish genes, referring to Richard Dawkins' book, The Selfish Gene, then why should truth matter at all? If life is simply a purposeless struggle for survival, then why would it show any interest in truth or falsehood? Well, there are a lot of social constructs that reveal the answer to this question. One of which we can see even today when we study monkeys and chimpanzees. There's a particular group of monkeys, for example, that hunt for eggs in shallow, mossy waters to eat. They have several monkeys as the lookouts for these mossy eggs, and these monkeys are usually lower on the social ladder. And it's their job to do a lookout and sort of show where any potential predators might be in the moss. If they see, for example, an alligator, they scream, make a certain noise, and all the other monkeys know to get the fuck out of the water. Now, while this is beneficial to tell the truth, they've also found that in certain cases it's beneficial to lie, and they do so. They scream and make all the monkeys get out of the water, and being the lower ranked monkeys, they know that they're probably not going to get very much of those eggs unless they get everybody else out of the water and find a way to get in there themselves. So they fake a predator warning and then run down and steal the eggs. Now, this can sometimes be good for them, but it can also sometimes lead to social stress. For example, there was a particular documentary on Nova a couple of years back where this particular thing happened. A monkey decided to tell an untruth, that is, to give a false warning for a predator so that it can feed itself. And as a result, one of the monkeys ran into an actual predator that he didn't see because he was down eating eggs. And this led to a beating by a bunch of other monkeys. as reciprocation, as punishment. They knew that he was lying, they found out that he was lying, and they punished him. So when we tell an untruth, we can see that there is the possibility of doing harm to our social group, and that social group, that society, is really what sustains and protects us, but it also has the potential of doing harm to us personally. If our social group decides that we're a detriment to society, then we'll be extradited or at least punished for that detriment. This reduces our ability to mate, and therefore a natural selection toward beings that are more likely to tell the truth, whatever organism is more likely to tell the truth than another organism of the same species, might be more likely to survive. If all members of a species are honest, and there's one that begins to lie, um, he's more likely to be punished, reprimanded, extradited, or simply killed. So it's a very simple thing, and it's not something that takes a whole lot of thought. I kind of just pulled that out of my ass, but it does make a lot of sense. And maybe that's the explanation, or maybe there's a better one. But at least we can see that there are some very good evolutionary explanations for where morality came from. And I'm sure that if you look up the work of Dawkins, or just do a goddamn Google search for evolution plus where did morality come from, you will get some acceptable answers. But if you choose to just accept the very first thing that comes to your mind related to God, then you're going to draw conclusions similar to the ones drawn by the author of this news story. He goes on to write, such a reductionistic worldview may help to explain why some atheists seem so cavalier with the truth. And then the story goes on to talk about why Richard Dawkins is a liar. And of course, this is told from the perspective of someone who is not a biologist and knows nothing of the subject that they're debating him on. And also is not done to his face, for if it were, he would surely, and has in the past, quickly rebut and effectively squelch the ridiculous arguments of this person. I have actually looked at the news story linked in this story, and it's pretty ridiculous. It's told from it's arguments like, if we evolved from monkeys, then why are there still monkeys, and ridiculous things like that. They obviously have not even read the book, or if they did, they didn't understand it. This is Thor getting swine flu, so you don't have to.